Well, good morning. Thank you all for being here on this blustery fall but sunny day. So we're thankful that you are here and that you are very interested in engaging and learning about the sixth grade transition. Your engagement means a lot, and I know that some of you have provided questions in advance, so we will be addressing those. But before we address those, I want to turn it over to Dr. Huff for a few words.
Good morning, everybody. Oh, I'm with you. I was there late last with the football game, so I completely understand. But I'm so glad that you're here to talk about one of the things that I'm really excited and passionate about is making sure that our kids get great experiences. And this transition is hard, not for the kids all the time. Guess who it's hard for? The parents. The parents want to know, hey, what's my life going to look like for my baby as they exit out of elementary school into middle school. So today you're in for, I think, a wealth of information on what exciting things are going to be there waiting for our sixth graders, but also some of those other behind the scenes things to make sure that we are doing it well. I also wanted to just share with you a little bit before we get into, it's actually going to be a topic on our slide, why are we doing this now? I think that's an important question to answer. We're doing this now because back in 2022, if you were here, there was a feasibility study that was done on our entire district to look at our enrollment trends, to look at our facility usage, and also to kind of project where we're going to go. And some of the things that came out of this was the need, or the recommendation, to position our sixth graders into more of a middle school traditional model. I agree with those things, and the reason why I agree with those things, it allows us to provide way more opportunities for our sixth graders in the form of academics and athletics and also into the arts. So it completely aligns to what we have going on today. Elkhart has a lot of positive momentum going right now, and I think this will be another step in making sure that we are doing things proactively, but also doing things well for our kids. So you'll hear that throughout our presentation, but I just kind of wanted to tell you first and foremost, thank you. And please know that we have really looked at all these different areas, but also your feedback is important. So continue to ask those questions that you may have some questions about, concerns about, but also when you hear something that you agree with, go out and champion that in the community, because I think your word matters just as much as mine. So I just want to give you just that little bit of background before I turn it back over to Mrs. Wagler.
So thank you once again for those who submitted their questions in advance. But if you did not have the opportunity, or as you're sitting here today and you're thinking of things and listening and you have additional questions, you can find a questionnaire by the QR code, so feel free to take a picture. We also have over here on the black tablecloth, we have papers as questionnaires, and you can fill out one of those questionnaires as well. We will gather all of the questions from those questionnaires and then turn them into an FAQ page that will be housed on our website. So also throughout the process, that FAQ page will be updated as we gather more questions throughout the process. So feel free to check that often for new updates. All right, so let's dive right into our discussion. So the decision, Dr. Huff had mentioned, the decision to transition the sixth graders has been a very thoughtful process that didn't happen overnight. It's the accumulation of many years of research and planning, and a significant part of that was the feasibility study that was done in 2022, which looked at various factors including emotional benefits, community needs, and resources. This study played a key role in informing our approach and ensuring that we're making the best decision for our students. So Dr. Huff, could you please give a little bit more background about this feasibility study and how these recommendations came about?
I certainly can, Mrs. Wagler. The feasibility study, first I want to thank anyone who participated on that key committee. They gave a lot of hours working with our school board, with our teachers, with our administrators on looking at ways that we can shape our school district that was, one, financially responsible, but also looking at programming and looking at structures. And so that study came about because, to be honest, Elkhart Community Schools enrollment is not where, it's taking a more of a rapid deceleration. We have right now, as of our October 1st count, which is a count that we submit to the state, we have 10,580 students in Elkhart Community Schools. We're still the 15th largest ranked school district in the state of Indiana. One of the things that came out of that feasibility study, they tried to project ahead where you would be this year. That deceleration is actually happening a little bit faster based off that feasibility study. Where we are today is where they projected us to be at the end of either 25, 26 on the high end, or on the low end on 26, 27. So it's much faster than I would like. So as a school district, what are you going to do? And one of the things you need to do is make sure that you're looking at your current resources and how you have your district structured. I believe this is a good opportunity for us to want to reimagine how we do school here at Elkhart Community Schools to increase academic achievement and rigor, but mostly also this is a good chance to make sure families are very informed, because I think there's a lot of unknown during transition periods from middle school to high school. So I wanted to be very transparent with you with those things. So that was a key driver, not just for finances, but for me, looking at the experiences of our middle school kids. Over the last 20, 25 years, after speaking to a variety of stakeholders, there has been, in my opinion, not the level of investment in our middle schools that there should have been. And so now is the time where we're going to do those things, because that's what's something that those kids deserve, but also I think parents want to know. That's where often our parents are making their decisions on what to do with our children. And you know where I want our kids to go? Where do I want them to go? Say it louder in the back so they can hear you. I want them to go to Elkhart. Elkhart offers more programs than any school district around. We offer more opportunities for kids in place around. What we need to do, though, is make sure that the outcomes match what we offer. And under my leadership and this team leadership, those things will happen. But I think it happens in concert with parents. So that feasibility study was a year-long process with parents, with teachers and with staff, to make sure that we had some recommendations for the new superintendent, whoever that may be. And I'm very blessed I was chosen by the school board to be the superintendent, to help to look at those recommendations and then to execute them, and most importantly, execute them well. And one of the things that was pretty much a consensus from that was moving the elementary kids out of the sixth graders out of the elementary school. That is most of the traditional model around the United States. We're one of the last to have a K through 6 model. Most districts around us have more of the middle school structure, 6, 7, and 8. I believe that allows us to, before we get into the educational benefits, to better inform parents when it's time to make those transitions. So that feasibility study was something that was authorized by our board back then, and I do want you to know that that was a key driver in the decisions that we make now. Only thing that I think we added to it, not only thing, we added a lot of things, but that we took an additional dive in looking at the programming, because there are some programming needs that were not discussed during that time. So that's some background I want to give to the community.
Thank you, Dr. Huff. All right, so we've highlighted a little bit of the past, and now we're coming to the present. And this is a timeline of this transition process. I know it's far away and hard to see, but if you go to our web page, on the 6th grade transition page of that website, we have the video of Dr. Huff doing this presentation to the board, and that slide is very visible on there. And we will also do a clip of that as well, so that it's easy to be able to be seen. So we know that it's essential for families to know what to expect as we move forward, which is why we created this timeline. And we've outlined some key milestones throughout this transition about what families can anticipate in the coming months as we lead up to the transition. So there were a couple of questions in regards to the timeline. So I don't know if you want to back and forth or if you want to do a microphone, but the first one that parents had asked was, will the middle schools be large enough to house sixth grade students?
Yeah.
Is this on?
Nope, I'm going over here.
Okay, it works.
Yes, our middle schools will be large enough to house our the addition of the sixth grade class. We went back and looked at 25 years worth of data looking at our facilities. Our facilities at one point had in between 800 and 900 students at that time. We're not doing that now. The largest one will be probably 800, where the other ones will range between 7 and 750. Square usage wise, we're in not just only compliance, there's still going to be a couple of different areas. We'll still have rooms for STEM labs. We'll have rooms for our special education rooms, and also some of our classrooms that require maybe a little bit smaller rooms like our high ability and so forth. But the team has done a really good job of going out and meeting and looking at the areas, and I kind of want to share with you what that setup will look like. The sixth graders will be in their own wing. We do not want them just to be released out into that world very quickly. We are accelerating up their educational experiences, right? They have really no say, but they do tell me about it when I go to visit the schools. We look forward to being there next year, or wait a second, why is this happening? So I try to talk to them in a very developmentally appropriate way. But one of the things that I did with Mr. Surge and with Dr. Roush is that we went and spoke with every middle school principal, and we identified areas inside the buildings where we can keep our sixth graders. Contained is the wrong word, but I hope that you understand what I mean. To have them, I went to contain, I was going to say isolated. Well, they're not. They're going to be in their own wing. And so they'll be able to receive their math instruction, their science instruction, their English language arts instruction, and all their electives in the particular area. There will be a little bit of crossover with our 7th and 8th graders. They'll have their own lunch period and so forth. But to answer that question, there's plenty of rooms in our middle schools. Our middle schools, one of them is designed to house 1,100 students. And the other one is designed to house, I think, less than 1,000, and the other one is also designed to house 1,000. So there's plenty of space in there. We're looking at roughly adding 250 kids per building. Is that good enough?
Yep.
All right.
Piggybacking off of some of that, will there be enough lockers, and will class sizes be larger?
I will start with the second question. Class sizes will not be larger for this group. We want to make sure that they enter middle school and enter middle school well. If they were a 5th grader and now they're going to be in middle school thinking a 6th grader, their typical class size would be between 26 and 27. We're moving them over in groups of 25. So each building can expect to receive a cohort of 10 classrooms with an average of 25 students apiece. Now, some of those students have different needs. Some are in our HA program. Some of them are in our exceptional learners require different type of supports, ENL student. So roughly the average we came up with is 25. They're also experience probably longer ELA blocks and longer math blocks because we want to make sure that the foundation that's set up for them for our 6th graders are pretty strong in those two different areas. So I believe that not only is there going to be enough room for them, but to answer the locker questions, there are plenty of lockers at each of the middle schools. I think there was an average of 850 at each of them, and then one of them had 939. I think that might have been the north side. But there are plenty of locker space for all of them.
All right. And then the last question that parents submitted on this issue is, are there going to be renovations done to the building, and what does that look like in the time frame?
I certainly can. I'm stepping in for our COO this morning, so I've certainly memorized his script, but also I've taken a pretty active role in our renovation process. Things that we're currently doing right now for renovation to get ready for this, because this is a really aggressive timeline. We've started already. We've started with digital signage for each of the building. We've also identified all the classroom areas where we need to remove certain equipment out to make sure that there's space for our students. That process has already begun. We're going to be enhancing enhancing our PA system before the end of the year. That's our all-call system. And then also we are, for security purposes, we're going to enhance every single of our swipe badges and locks there. And then we're also looking at adding additional staff for security as well. Those are some of the things that we're doing right now. Starting in January, we're going to go pretty hardcore into classroom renovations, and that includes tons of touch-up in paint, touch-up in carpeting, touch-up in making sure that the places are inviting for our students. We're going to have two groups of kids, fifth graders who are going to be rising sixth graders, and sixth graders who are going to be rising seventh graders who are used to the elementary world until they get used to the middle school world. You know what they're used to in the elementary schools? Nice, bright environments. You know what our middle schools are going to turn into? Nice, bright environments. You go to there right now, I think we can do a little bit better, and we will do that. So that investment will go in making sure that there's plenty of signage, because there's going to be now two groups of kids who's going to say, I don't know where to go. So we're going to help them to figure out that transition. Other things that we're going to be doing, we're going to make sure that we update all our restrooms there to make sure that they are ADA compliant, and we're also going to make sure that other things are done to make sure that we are compliant in that area as well. And then on the outside, you'll probably see some additional work that's being done as far as landscaping and sculpting and looking at our front office areas and in those other spaces to make sure that again, these are warm, inviting areas for kids, because kids notice, and so do parents. So that's some of the work that plans to be done. Clearly, our timeline, we plan to bring in students to see these areas, starting with their middle school visits, starting next month and in December. And then we also want to invite parents in to see the progress that are done. One of the strategies that I plan to use, I want to share with parents, this is what our facilities looks like now, and then every couple weeks you'll see, I'll give you an update on, hey, here's some upgrades in some areas where we are. And I want you to look at the pictures and see that, hey, they are making progress. We're going to land this, and we're going to land this well, but I want to be very transparent to where we are in the timeline. So in December, I will give you my next update to the community, and then I think we have you scheduled to come in February to look and see if you would choose where our middle schools will look like. So I'm excited about the renovations.
All right. Thank you so much. All right, shifting gears from the logistics and the buildings, another question that many families have asked are, what are the educational benefits of moving sixth graders to middle school? Research shows that this transition can provide students with greater opportunities for academic growth, access to specialized teachers, and broader curriculum. So Dr. Rausch, I'm going to turn this one over to you. This question: what are some of the research-based benefits of sixth graders being housed in middle school?
Good morning, Dr. Amy Rausch. I am the Assistant Superintendent of Instruction. I'm also a former middle school principal, and I had 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and I just want to assure you that everything is going to be A-okay when they come over to our 3 middle schools. The transition, the first few weeks will probably be, a little scary for everyone, but they settle in and they just acclimate themselves nicely into the middle school arena. 6th graders really do look up to those 8th graders, and you'll see that the 8th graders really do a nice job of mentoring those 6th graders, and also those 7th graders too also do some mentoring as well. As Dr. Huff stated, we will be keeping them separated, except for with some of the electives. They will have to travel, and cross paths, but honestly, it'll be okay. Some of the definite benefits is the fact that now they will have, their core subjects, English, math, science, social studies, but then they will have those electives. We are still in the planning phases, and so we will still be working on what the schedule will look like and what those electives will look like. But as far as access to, sorry, I was just looking.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I can help with that.
Yeah,
too.
thanks. Access, they will have a lot more opportunities to clubs, and I know we're going to talk about athletics here later, but music and arts as well.
All right. And you had briefly mentioned the leadership opportunities. So that is leadership opportunities for 8th graders because they are mentoring the 6th graders throughout the transition?
Yes, yes. And it really is amazing to see the 8th graders take ownership of their school, because that is their school. They've been there now, and I know that this next year they won't be there. Well, actually, they will be there now longer when they make it through the 3 years. But even being there for 2 years, the 8th graders do have that ownership of their middle school, and you'll see that. But we also have a very strong counseling department. We have a lot of wraparound services for our students, and so just rest assured, anything that your student needs, we can provide.
And then what about the summer? What kinds of opportunities, benefits will students have to be able to help them through this transition?
You want to take? Sure.
I know that's your favorite.
Yeah, that is my favorite question. And thank you, Dr. House, for sharing that. Another educational benefit that I think that parents need to know, our 6th graders receive the least amount of instructional time in our district because they have to travel to middle school for band if they are into the arts. Anybody have any child in band? I see lots of hands raised. By them being in the middle school setting, they'll be able to get more instructional time based on that. So I think it's transparent that schedule really does drive the elementary schedule and it drives the middle school schedule. By us making this transition now, it corrects that issue, but it also provides more instructional time for them at the elementary level for the kids that are there, and then also provides the 6th graders with more time inside of the building. But as far as summer programs, if you probably have noticed, there haven't been that too many summer programs for our middle school students. That is not okay with me and members of my team and for our board. We believe that the best way to engage our students is making sure that they have access to high quality programming all year round. Engaged hands are hands that are typically moving towards something, and we don't want kids moving towards things that aren't going to benefit them long term. So this year you also will see robust summer programming and also after school tutoring programming. I know Mr. Surge has already started that. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you've been meeting with middle school principals to talk about after school tutoring services to kind of help our kids become successful along the way. So for me, I believe that whole wraparound approach that Dr. Rauch alluded to will be fantastic for our middle school as a part of transitioning. And then last but certainly not, those mentoring opportunities. 6th graders, they are the kings and queens of their buildings and as far as being in those spaces. And so one of the things we wanted to make sure that's something that they're going to miss as they move to middle school. And I know that's going to be hard. That could be hard. So how can we make sure that those kids have similar mentoring opportunities and to be mentored? And so there'll be strategic pairing with our 8th graders, but also there'll be a counselor in each one of the areas to make sure that they are monitoring the kids along the way through that middle school session. So they'll have close relationships with their counselors, close relationships with their social workers, close relationships with their assistant principal who oversees that particular area. So from 6th, 7th, and 8th, parents will also have a consistent contact too. So by the time they're in 8th grade, hey, Mrs. Smith, you've been dealing with my kids since 6th grade. Tell me what's really going on. And I think that is important for you to see that there's consistency as well. So I believe this structure is also going to be helpful with them as far as the educational benefits of students feeling welcome, safe, and also, more importantly, empowered while they're in school.
And part of those educational benefits are the programming that we plan to offer. So I want to switch gears to the programming. Middle school offers a unique chance for students to explore various subjects and extracurricular activities that may not be available in elementary schools. So we have actually several questions in this category that parents have submitted. So I'm going to ask them to several of our panel up here. The first one, Dr. Rauch, how will the lunch periods be affected since there will be an increase of students?
The lunch periods, we are hoping that we can keep the 6th grade, 7th, and 8th having their own lunch time. So honestly, until we get that scheduled, we would like to keep the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade as separated as possible.
Great. And we've had a couple of this question here. Will there be recess for sixth graders? So I'm going to tag Barb in on that one.
Good morning. It's so good to see so many interested parents here this morning on this cold Saturday morning. This is a big step for kids, and it's maybe even a bigger step for parents. This is a tough transition, having your kids leave elementary school. I know, and there's lots of little anxieties coming from your kids, questions. I think the recess question comes from, you know, they have a lot of unstructured play during recess, and they have a lot of time to socialize with their friends. So the question comes, when, you know, am I going to make friends? Am I going to see my old friends? And so there will not be a traditional recess kind of period in middle school, but there will be lunch opportunities to socialize. There will be passing periods, and I can tell you, I taught middle school one time too, and there's a lot of time for socialization in that 5 or 6 minutes in a passing period. And not only that, but there's after-school clubs, there's activities, there's sports. So yes, the kids will have activities, not to mention the PE period, so they will have plenty of physical activity and much longer hallways to navigate. So once those fears go away, they get excited, kids get excited about the new schedule, about changing classes. They adapt well. It's a challenge for them, I'm sure you remember walking into your middle school or walking into your high school and thinking, oh, how am I ever going to remember where to go? And it takes about a day and a half. And then you see your friends, and you see new people, and you adapt. And every time kids adapt to a challenge, they grow. They grow physically, emotionally, socially. So we have to give them those opportunities to grow. We're not throwing them to the wolves. They're going to be gradually released to more difficult academic expectations over the years. But I can tell you, if you remember what kindergarten was like, dropping your kids off, some kids just hopped out of the car and ran into the room, and then others had to be walked in, and some have to be actually peeled off their parents. But as a principal, too, and a mother of 3 kids who went through Elkhart Community Schools, I can tell you that about 10 minutes after mom leaves, these tears stop. They run to play with their friends, they get involved, and they're fine. And sometimes it takes kids a little bit longer to adjust, but they will adjust. So, sorry to say, kids, no recess, but lots of other good stuff.
All right, this next question is also thinking from the mindset of coming from the elementary school into the middle school. The current 5th graders now, will they be able to have the special recognitions and honors that the 6th graders now currently have? Will there be graduation opportunities? Will they be able to go through all of that since they're in 5th grade now and 6th grade is going to look different for them?
Yes, I'm sure that every school is going to plan something for our students who are leaving their elementary schools. This year is going to be unique because we will have 2 grades leaving, and I am totally confident we have great celebrations for kids moving, making those transitions from one level to another in all our schools, and that will happen again for both those grade levels. So if you're on a PTO, or somehow involved in your school, just email a principal and ask, do you have any plans yet? And I'm sure they're already starting to think about how they're going to respect this transition for kids moving on.
All right, thank you. Dr. Roush, there are many opportunities. We briefly touched on extracurriculars and programming, but what kind of extracurriculars, what kind of new programs are going to be available for sixth graders that they didn't have when they were in sixth grade in elementary school.
So obviously, again, the core subjects will be taught, and then as far as electives, again, we're still in the planning phases, so we're still trying to flesh this out. As far as the electives, we're hoping to incorporate technology, computer science, college and careers, some financial literacy as well, and then, as she mentioned, PE health, and I think that should do it. And then obviously the arts and music as
Yep.
well, yes.
Arts, music,
Yes,
athletics?
Yes.
May I add one thing?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Dr. House. I want to add on just a little bit to what we're saying. One of the things, too, that will be dramatically different for our middle school next year is that we have entered into a partnership with an organization called Ford NGL. Ford, who in here drives a Ford? Look at you, very proud driving Fords. Good for you. Ford NGL is probably the number one collaborator with schools like ours. When I say schools like our large urban school districts that promote a connection between a school system and into the community. They look at the community needs and they actually help you to design courses that our kids are not only interested in, but give them real world experiences on what it looks like to be in an organization on whether it's nonprofit, whether it's for-profit. They help us to facilitate those connections. The selection process to get into Ford NGL, it was a 4-month selection process. They do not take every school district, but because of our reputation and because of how our city, and we have members of our business community who want to really work alongside our schools, they felt that we were a prime candidate to have these experiences for our kids beginning in 6th grade. So we are in a current process of sharing that out to our community, but I'll give you an example. 6th grade, entrepreneurial skills. That will be a new course. They would not have access to that in elementary school. They will have access to that in middle school. And so this year, we've already had our first consult with Ford NGL, 2 weeks are blending together. It might have been this week. This week, where they're going to be doing the planning phases so we can start those things next year. But I'm excited for that because our kids already have entrepreneurial spirits. My son is on something called Twitch every day, trying to get money for playing basketball on NBA 2K. That's not what it's going to look like in the school system, but in the school system, they will be connected with an organization where they can actually go and learn those things and what it looks like, and then they'll actually be able to develop a plan for their business, and then there'll be a continuation on that in 7th and 8th grade. So this just doesn't only impact 6th grader, it impacts the whole middle school experience, and I'm excited for that because I think our kids, it's never too early to just have them to start to think about what he or she wants to do when this great ride of the school experience with Elkhart ends. But we don't want to speed them up that fast, right? But we do need to make sure that we're exposing them early. So that partnership began in earnest this week, and it's a 5-year partnership. And so after 5 years, I think we'll be up and running, ready to do it ourselves, but they're going to be working with us along the way. So I just wanted to make sure that the community had that information as well.
All right. Thank you so much. We also have 2 additional segments of the student population that we want to make sure that we acknowledge throughout this transition, and we had a lot of questions regarding that. And those are our ELA students and our high ability students. So Dr. Roush, could you tell us a little bit more about what's happening as far as the considerations that we're doing for each of those populations?
So as far as high ability, all 3 middle schools will offer high ability courses. Again, middle school, we're trying to prepare for high school. We also are preparing not only for college, but for careers. We have a fantastic career center as well. So we really want to start offering those honors courses. We offer some high school courses in 8th grade, and we'd like to increase that as well. So the high ability will be offered in all 3 middle schools to, again, let's get them ready for high school, college, career, and or moving into our career center. Are you going to talk?
Yeah, I'll talk about services. And also with that, I think what we talk about is I know our honors, our high ability cohort is at West Side. We do have honors programming at the other two schools, North Side and at Pierre Moran. So those things will continue. Lisa Ernsberger, who's our Director of Professional Learning, she will also be providing the community with that information along the way. So definitely want to add to that. As far as our English as a new language support services that we're going to have, we know that there's a clear need for that in our district, particularly with students coming in. We typically think of students coming in traditionally in kindergarten. We're finding out over time, kids are coming into school systems in 4th and 5th and 6th grade with limited English skills. So one of the things that we need to be intentional about is what does that programming look like for a student if they're in grade 6 and they're coming into the school system and we're putting them into these content areas. So one of the things that we're currently missing are newcomers courses at each of our middle schools. That is a traditional approach at school districts that typically have that are our size. And so that's one additional avenue in which we will be supporting our English language learners as well. It allows them to receive more time in their content area and also while they acquire those English proficiency skills based off those WIDA standards. So I'm excited for that as well. It's an additional layer of support for those students also. So
While you're there, could you speak to the last 2 bullet points as well, please?
she's telling me, so I might as well do it. So one of the things that, if you've been keeping up with the state, financial literacy is something that is being pushed heavily in schools. When I say pushed heavily, I agree with it. Our kids need to make sure that they have a financial acumen, and it can't really wait until they're in their senior year of high school. It is a course requirement and a legal requirement in high school, but also it is something that we're going to offer in middle school as well. So that is something that you'll get some more information on when we create the course description along the way throughout this process. Also, I'll be very frank, one of the things that we are currently in the process, and Mr. Enmanin, who our Director of Technology is here, he's currently leading an AI committee that is looking at developing a policy on acceptable usage for our students to to learn more about AI in our schools. Parents, and this is not rocket science, your kids are already using it. Raise your hand if you're using it as an adult. Raise your hand if you used it already this morning. I used it already this morning. So what I'm saying is, how do we make sure that kids have those same type of experience that every other school district is offering? Because right now that is missing from our course description. I would much rather them learn under the care of great teachers that we have here in Elkhart Community Schools, opposed to dabbling in that area alone. And so that is something that our kids, I won't necessarily say our 6th grade kids, but along the way they will have an AI course elective. I'm looking forward to the recommendation that will come to me in December or so, and I also look forward to developing that course description so you can see exactly how we're going to go about it. I think that will be a game changer for our students because it's already happening at the college level where there are entire courses taught by AI chatbots, whatever you want to call it. And there are high school courses that are being done around the nation in that way as well. I'm not saying we're going that route, but I want our students to be prepared for anything that comes their way. So this is a good time as we're doing these transitions, thinking about the missing programs that are not being offered and what things we can do to make sure that they have those opportunities while they're with us in Elkhart Community Schools.
Great, thank you. All right, and we have one new question that came in from a parent who attended one of the previous forums, and so I don't know who wants to field this question, but a parent wanted to know, what will a 6th grader's day look like? Will there be 7 classes? Will there be team teachers? What is that going to look like?
Again, we are still in the planning phase, and we are looking at possibly 7 periods. They will be moving from class to class. We'd like to maybe keep them in teams, but again, we're still in the planning phase, and we're working that out. But it will mimic being in a middle school.
Mr. Church, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, what we're looking into is, how many bell schedules do we want to run? How different do we want to make it? But what we want to do is create consistency for all kids at the middle school, and that includes our sixth graders. So I think we have an opportunity to do that, and I know we're looking at 7-period day right now. It's not in stone yet, but we are looking at it, and what we want to do is take our time and make sure we do what's best for all our kids at the middle school.
Thank you. All right, we are going to shift completely from the classroom to one of the most common questions that we received for this transition process was about transportation. How will transportation affect the students that are transitioning? And we're committed to ensuring that our transportation system is efficient and effective. So we've already started the process of some of this even before we took this path for the sixth grade transition. So the first question, and I would normally ask this to Mr. Giannessi, our COO, but he's not here today, so I think I may turn it over to Dr. Huff. Parents have asked, how far will their sixth grader have to walk by themselves?
Great question, whoever asked that question. I will tell you right now, the current walk zones are 2 miles for middle schoolers. My pledge is to, and it's not a hope, it's a pledge, we're going to reduce those walk zones. My goal is by at least 50%. We are currently as Ms. Wagler.
You can promote me.
No, you got to earn those titles. But one of the things that we were looking at with our routing companies is that what would it take to make sure that no kid had to walk to middle school based off our current projections. They'll come back with that information. I think we have an RFP that's scheduled to go out this week. But they've already given me the answer. And then they've said, well, this is what your bus sizes will look like if you went with that model. Well, then you go, what would it be if only 10% had to walk? And then the question is, well, how do you decide what 10% have to walk to school? We don't have that information yet. I'm pledging that walk zone will be reduced for almost all our kids, but we're definitely going to start with that 50% metric. 2 miles, I believe, is a long way to walk to school. So right now, the guidance that we've given our route finders, that's actually the name of the organization that we are working with, is that, hey, what does our routing look like if it was only a mile walk zone? And then, but the goal is to try to get as many kids, and that's not just shoving kids on the bus, it's making sure that we have more efficient routes. I shared at one of our previous conversations that we had this week with the community is that, to be honest, some of our bus routes are very inefficient. They're going into areas where they're not even picking up students. That's a waste of time. We need to figure out, well, who needs access to busing, and how do we make sure that our routes are routed in a way that are very efficient so he or she who does need that access can get it, and we're not wasting time just going around and looking in areas where we know for years that kids aren't riding buses anymore. So also, outside of transportation, you probably have been receiving enrollment paperwork. And in that enrollment paperwork next year, it will ask you, anybody a car rider that just take their kids to school? If you're a car rider next year, you will actually slide and say, hey, I still plan to continue to take my child to school. That allows us as a school system to say, hey, that's one less kid that we have to worry about routing. Let's go ahead, and the software will then react to that. So having a better picture of who wants what type of services here is essential. Right now, the system, the way that it's currently set up, it just routes every child. And that's not true in Elkhart Community Schools. So it's just not an effective way. So my team has been tasked to look at that, and they've been working on that since August, because my goal is for you to, before the end of the year, to know exactly what your routing situation will look like before next year. And when we talk about increased number of students on the bus, that may not necessarily be true. We just need to get a better picture of what kids need bus services. Right now, I can tell you there are some buses that are not efficient. There's some buses that only have like 20 kids on a bus that's designed to have 84 kids. Each route that we run in Elkhart Community Schools costs at a minimum $50,000 per route. That's not a very good use of taxpayer dollars. So we want to make sure that we are being good stewards of funds and looking at how can we make sure that this bus route here this has 84 kids, that's way too many. Can we route that a little bit differently? Because I'm sure a driver would love to have a little bit less kids on the bus for that route, but then a driver that has 17 students or 20, there's probably some ways that we can add to that bus route. So you will get notifications along the way, not exactly of this is what your bus route will be in February. No, it changes that. No, you'll get a notification of the progress of what that looks like. But our target date for bus rerouting for the district, because it is a pretty big process, is by April. And so when those enrollment paperwork comes out and they're asking you to re-register for next year, please just select that box, whatever your transportation choice is, and then it allows our system to go ahead and start that routing process. So that's something that we've been working on and we'll continue to work on, and we look forward to having more kids have access to the bus. And also, when the kids tell me you're making me walk to school for too long, I don't want to have to look them in the face and say, that's not me, that's Ms. Wagler who's making you do that. So she didn't like that. But I do want to say we're committed to reducing that walk zone for those kids. Any other questions about transportation?
No, you answered we had 3 questions and you got them all in one because you're that efficient. And it's our 3rd forum, so yes, we've been practiced at this. All right, so then I'm going to switch to athletics. The transition opens up new opportunities for 6th graders to engage in sports at a more competitive level, and so we're excited to be able to offer a variety of athletic programs that will help students stay active and develop teamwork skills. So, Mr. Surge, can you tell us, will there be new competitive athletic opportunities for 6th graders, and if so, what are those?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Frank Surge. I'm the Director of Secondary Schools. And the short answer is yes. And right now in our Big 11 conference, which our middle schools are a part of, currently 7th graders can participate, or 6th graders can participate in 3 sports: cross country, wrestling, and track. But what we're looking at is we have a number of schools in the conference that are 6, 7, and 8. So our athletic directors are looking at developing a more robust sports program for our 6th graders. So we are going to do our best to increase those opportunities for kids at the 6th grade level as well. So we're working pretty hard at it. We don't know exactly what they're going to be yet, but we know we're going to have more than just 3. All right? And the other thing I want to add to it, we have other areas that 6th graders are a vital part of, and that's our music program, our band, a choral, and orchestra program. Are engaging programs for our kids, and we want to continue to do that, and we want to do that well. As you know, we do that well in Elkhart, and we want to continue that excellence in that area. And I've been doing this for a while. As a high school principal, I was a middle school principal. I saw new 9th graders come in. I saw new 7th graders come in. And let me tell you, parents, and I've told parents this over and over again, give the kids about a week or 2 and they will adapt. What I've seen in the past, kids are adaptable. They will figure it out, and they'll figure it out quickly, and they're going to be fine. They're going to have a great experience. You're going to be happy with it, and we're going to work hard to make sure it works all right. Thank you.
And then lastly, we had a couple of questions come in that weren't strictly about the 6th grade transition, but a little broader in scope. So as we look ahead, we're also considering several other initiatives to further enhance the Elkhart community school experience. These initiatives will focus on creating the best environment for both the academic success and the personal growth of our students. Dr. Huff, could you please speak to some of these future initiatives?
I certainly will. Thank you, Mrs. Wagler, and also good job moderating these parent forums. Really appreciate your work. One of the things, well, there's 3 things on here, but there's a multitude of things that we need to look at over the next few years. The middle school transition is literally phase one of the things that we're looking at. So if you follow Marvel movies, they did phases, and this is phase one for us. And this is making sure that you see how we move and operate when we're moving with the most important thing in our district, which is your babies, and how we make sure that they transition successfully from here to here in a safe and also a educationally beneficial way. The next part that we need to look at is continue to monitor our enrollment. I pray and I hope our enrollment stays pretty consistent, and this was actually the smallest decrease that we saw in enrollment over the few years. But as a good steward of public funds, there are going to be some things that we need to look at. You know that we're moving kids from this level to this level. What does that mean for the level, for your elementary levels? And I don't have a definitive answer yet, but I do know that down the line we'll have to actually, again, look at those conversations, see what that looks like for that world. And that may look at facility usage, that may look at how we're utilizing staff, and we're going to come back and continue to have more of these transparent conversations that have to do with looking at our buildings. So I want to make sure that you understand that this is just not the final phase. There's going to be some other conversations that we're going to have as an entire community, and where we're going to need parent input. So I just want to make sure we talk about that. Bell schedule. As we're making these moves, is this the optional bell schedule? I know a few years ago we had we changed the bell schedule where the little kids walk to start coming to school at 7 o'clock, and then we had the middle school, then the high school. One of the things behind the scenes that my team and I will be doing is say, is that the most optimal bell schedule for learning? Is that the most optimal bell schedule for safety? And so getting some community input on that will be very critical, and as we present that information out to the community, I think that's important. And then lastly, since we're making such a dramatic shift, we need to figure out, well, you have now moved these kids into the school building. What does your future district lines look like? What does that look like? It's not just as simple as, oh, we're just going to keep everything the same. Well, you've dramatically altered what the looks of your elementary, the sizes of what they look like. So looking at that, I'm definitely going to make sure that working with my team, working with the board, getting some input from teachers, input from the community, what our district lines will look like over the next few years. Basically what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of work that still needs to be done after this transition. And it's going to be, some of the conversations are going to be easier than others, but some of them are going to be really hard, and some of them may even be very emotional. When we're talking about kids and we're talking about schools, we're talking about schools where you went to, that can be hard. But you'll find that we'll make data-driven decisions, and you'll get transparent information so you can always make a choice. Because I think it's important that you know how your leader thinks and communicates about things. So those are just some of the future considerations that we have. So again, I'm excited for the future of Elkhart Community Schools. I'm excited about the experiences that we have, and also, to be honest, raising the academic rigor for our children. We want to make sure that they are prepared to do great things once they are in our care, because they're always going to be in our care. We're always going to be proud of them. Let's do the best job we can for them while we have them right now. So those are just some of the things that we'll be talking about as we think about this transition to middle school.
Thank you so much, Dr. Huff. Well, that brings us to the end of the questions that were pre-submitted. But before we wrap up, I want to remind everyone, even though this was the last parent forum that we have for the week, please continue to submit your questions. You can do that through the... Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We'll be updating parents every quarter as well. At a board meeting, I will also go into where we are from phase 1 to phase 2, so you can see where we're, not phase 1 to phase 2, on that timeline to make sure that you know where we are. And also you'll be getting correspondence from my office, from me, and I'm just asking you, if it doesn't come from me, most likely it's not, I don't want to say accurate, but I want to make sure that you know that it's coming from the superintendent seat. So my goal is to make sure I'm communicating directly with parents every 2 weeks about this process. So next week you'll get something that recaps this, and then every 2 weeks afterwards. So communication will be coming pretty steadily about this process.
Perfect. So, and again, continue to submit questions throughout the entire process. We will be gathering what we've collected this week and creating an FAQ and putting that on our, not our Facebook page, on our website, excuse me. So thanks again for coming out this morning. I know that you are really invested in this, and you took time out of your Saturday, and we really appreciate it, and we look forward to working with you throughout this transition process. Thank you.